realm when I played in that as a bodybuilder powerlifter, I was putting up numbers that were almost record breaking. And that's not me playing my own flute, my violin, my trumpet, whatever you want to call it. And that was from a very incredible understanding of how to harness the energy. And if I just came from it as a power lifter or a bodybuilder, I would never have attained the feats that I performed when I was obsessed with that stuff. That has everything to do with my inner connection, my higher consciousness, and then my realization of my eternal immortal self.
We were talking about earlier, like when you're sleeping, your body is doing the most healing versus when you're awake. And it's like just like you mentioned with all the hormones and everything, after you exercise or do your form of exercise, those next 48 72 hours, that's where your body is doing the most growth. Whatever it is you want it to do, your hormones are firing the most. So almost understanding that it's not even so much the exercise, it's the rippling effect and the expansive effect that happens afterwards, where you're really going to notice whatever physical kind of achievements. I want to be faster, I want to be stronger, I want to be leaner. That's where that takes place. And I think people kind of always assume it's like, oh, it's right in front of me. If I lift super heavy, that's where I'm gaining it. It's like, no, you're gaining it with that chemistry, either balance or imbalance that you're creating.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jade speaks on it, and it's very clear the recovery cycle and understanding that when you get into deep states of delta and epsilon brainwaves, you are magic hour. You are not just repairing, you are creating, superhuman results from the chemistry in your body. So, the exercise is the spark, the cognitive spark that is necessary, that creates the rippling effect. Now, in most cases, anything you do to your physical body, any sort of because everything you're doing is being validated as stress, because there needs to be a response. The whole point of exercise is creating stress. Now, people don't look at it that way, and that's a beautiful thing, because there are too many people that look at exercise in of itself as painful, and
Right.
as we speak on, your linguistics speak volumes. How you talk about things on an unconscious level is determined what's going on internally. That's what's really happening to you. And you're speaking volumes by the words that you choose that are coming out unconsciously within your own interaction with the world. So you do the exercise. The exercise is fundamentally, I would always take people who were, elite athletes, and they wanted to achieve a goal. Well, first and foremost, I'm going to wire in their spiritual awareness, because that's what they come to me for. And the second and third thing on the route is, I'm the best of the best. I want to be even better. Well, if you start from a spiritual level, everything else just falls into place.
Right.
But if we look at it from the aspect of the physicality, there is an element, right? Once you've mastered your ability to change the state you're in, like that, which you get from the Way 126 experience, is you can change your state at will with a visual, audible, evoking a kinesthetic response. It's life-changing. And that's really where the magic starts, a rippling effect. But if we're shaping and shifting things from a physicality perspective, which is the lowest level, you just have to be short and sweet. So I've taken athletes that are, marathon runners, footballers, Olympians, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's not about training and repeating this old notion that people have, and I've never subscribed to it, to be honest with you. I've never, throughout all the years I've been on this earth, even when I first started my obsession with the body back when I was just a young boy, I knew internally what they were telling me was wrong. Now, of course, I have an in-depth understanding of it now that just validates everything I already knew, which comes right back to, if you know it, you
don't have to learn it.
If you learn it, you don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
So with that premise, make sure the efficiency is critical. And so you want to reduce the potential of anybody is quite limited, because they're not even working at 5%, 10% of what they're capable of. You look at someone like, I always reference this because it's quite an achievement, a Michael Jordan, a Mike Tyson. These people are superhuman from the outside in, but they're sitting in the flow, and they know when to strike. They feel it. It's the neurology, ladies and gentlemen and ladies, the neurology that fires that off. It's not the morality.
Mm-mm.
Let's not get twisted. You see, the universe is not measuring your morality. It's not measuring your virtue signaling. Right back to the Tao Te Ching. If you act in virtue, you have none whatsoever. People need to understand this. It's so important. It's the feeling. And what fundamentally happens if you allow that neurology to speak to you, that feeling, that synchronicity, that coherence that is created between the heart and the brain and the gut, guess what? All bets are off. All bets are off, because you are then able to obtain and gravitate to, because when you are in that fifth dimension reality, you know what that is? That's oneness, baby. You are whole, you are singular, right? And so when you're singular, all of a sudden everything is as one. Nothing has title. So your concerns of your personality, having a judgment, I'm punishing myself, I'm obsessed with certain thoughts, sexual practices, the way I perceive myself, present myself to the rest of the world, all of that is null and void when you obtain that 5D reality, because you will gravitate to it without even thinking, because that's what a singular is. Thinking is not knowing. A singular is knowing. All the other stuff just falls away. You don't even have to go, am I in the right virtue? Am I thinking like I am someone of a higher enlightenment? Am I feeling grateful? Am I in love? Am I emoting these emotions that are going to evoke this synchronicity? It's unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. You think of like all the stories. I've seen so many stories of like just like random acts of kindness, mm-hmm. or like a good Samaritan, a person stuck in the car and their car's on fire, mm-hmm. and someone pulls over and cuts their seatbelt and gets them out. And it's like every time they interview them after, they're like, what made you do that? Or like, and it was always like, well, something just told me to stop, or like, I just had this gut feeling I had to do that, or, I saw this, baby running across the road, and I just I jumped out and, made sure they didn't get hit by traffic. There is never, ever a single person who's like, I tapped in and I was wearing mm-hmm. my yoga clothes that day, and I
you needed to be at one with the universe.
I was just with they're either getting a direct message that's like a arrow straight through their forehead, or they're completely not thinking, they're just acting.
Right.
And it's so beautiful. I mean, I love reading stories like that and stuff, because
effortless action.
It is. It's this
Effortless
it like
effort.
gives you chills a little bit because you know it to be so real, and you just know it. That's that instant. They're in that 5D completely unaware, and that's the beauty of
And
it.
that's it. And they're resonating. They're producing those brain waves, those gamma brain waves that we speak of, and that's that selfless act. That's that understanding. You're not first person, third person. You are no person, and you are operating in that space. And there is a supercharge like you've never seen before. And that's part of what the 126 is so powerful. It wires and aligns you so that your coherence is instantaneous. Your ability to access that state is the supercharge, the kinesthetic response from the visual and audible. And that makes it so. That makes it true to you, because the only truth is your truth, and your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. And the validator of that, so it is so, is the supercharge, is the kinesthetic response. That's what makes it real. And so when we look at layered, where was I? I was at
Just exercise, and
Well-
less is always more.
yeah, understanding that synergy and that mechanism that's necessary. So, you could take a marathon. Or just earlier today, I was speaking to, I speak to a lot of people every day, but like this one guy, and, I just know I have my teachers tell me, look, speak to this person, share with them this, do whatever. I'm like, okay. I don't really question it. And I was speaking to this guy, and I gave him some of my time. And I'm void of space and time, space-time. I just operate. I could turn around and a week could be gone, a month could be gone. And you know what my answer to that is? It's good to be me. Because you know that if you are in a place of anxiety, fear, stress, anger, every minute is like an hour. Every hour is like a day. Every day is like a month. Every month is like a year, and so on, and so on. So understand that all that is relevant. So out of nowhere, he would message me on Instagram, and I would respond to him, or I'd just call him through the Instagram, right? And be like, oh my goodness, wow, you're calling me. It's like a lot of people seem to forget this whole social media hierarchy thing. I'm not a big fan of hierarchies. The truth is, I am the student, you're the teacher. You're the student, I am the teacher. It's always an ever-learning, ever-growing cycle. Well, the second you lose sight of that, you've lost your consciousness development. It ends there, ladies and gentlemen and ladies. That's the simplicity of it. The gift is your offering. The offering is your gift. Understand that, and you will be singular. That's it. So he just, I gave him quite a bit of my time from what he was like, why you give me a lot of your time? And then out of nowhere, he messaged me a little bit later, and he said, why are you helping me? So it's like, what? Why are you helping me? And I was like, and he's like, I'm really grateful. I'm like, I messaged you back. I said, that's my selfless default of who I am. I can't fight that. That's what gravitate. That's what gives me the supercharge, where I'm in that state of knowing, is being in service to help others. And it doesn't come from me making sure that I'm virtue signaling whether I've done enough prayer work, whether I've done enough meditation, whether I'm using the correct vocabulary and the types of adjectives that would be appropriate. That means nothing. It's just inside you. That is the truth to everything. The inner workings of your default is that selfless act, being in service of others. You can't fight it. Everyone's experienced it, and you will realize that it is more often than not that that's what you're going through within your lifetime. So it was like, why are you helping me? And I've experienced this, on Jade and I's journey through social media. Is this is sort of like an interesting place to be. I take little to no measure of it, because there's all this mayhem going on, and through it you find the singular, you find the oneness. Ultimately, our purpose is to help people raise their consciousness. That's it, beginning and end. And that's why we designed the app. That's why we created it. It's to have people level up to their awareness. And that's just the beginning of an incredible journey of realization. That's what the way does. And, you just go through this, and it seems to be an interesting process of how people communicate within social media. And there's so much, smoke and mirrors. Let me put it that way. And so many people present themselves as one thing, but in reality, and they're very successful in whatever they're doing, yet within their personal life, if they're interacting with someone like myself, they're none of the above. They're just not. They're a complete opposite of whatever they claim they are, and they, confess to be, and they're not, which goes right back to the model we're talking about, how linguistics, body language, it all speaks to you. It gives you the inner workings of that individual in black and white, whether they are conscious and telling you or not. You are able to have this psychic ability to bear witness to it and extract the information that's necessary for you to realize they're full of shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of what they want to be perceived, and then what really is perceived.
Right.
And, through, like you said, either through the linguistics or through the just different mannerisms, different things. And again, it's all about consciousness. We get just as excited when we get someone who is like, wow, I really resonated with what you said in that video. And then we get a lot of comments too that are like, no way, you can't say that. This is, it's only X and you're saying Y. And it's like, hey, you know what? I'm just excited for both. You want to know why? Because I open your consciousness both ways, whether you felt the need to sit there and argue with me over the internet, or you felt the need to really resonate with it.
Right.
It's all opening.
Right.
And
right.
that's really powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. They're getting back to the power of this vessel that everyone has. There isn't anything even compared close to face to face with someone,
right.
or even voice to voice. Watching a pre-filmed video or even Zooming with somebody, you're still missing so many components that we speak through this body, and the language and the power that comes from that connection of like me being right next to you physically versus through a screen or through a computer.
Right.
There is no comparison.
Right. Yeah, so we get down to it. We get down to the nuts and bolts of the human being and its connection with the earth and the universe, and then fundamentally how you optimize this physical body. Of course, first and foremost, your consciousness, your awareness is what's going to nail it every single time. So as you're on this journey of awareness and you're tuning yourself to that 5D reality within this 3D reality, there are things that you can do to level up very quickly on the physicality side. So Jade was talking about how she did little to no. I in all the decades I've been involved with the human body, which, spiritual stuff as a priest 30 years, physical stuff over 40, this is how it works, right? Less is more.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime you want to sort of like attempt to change that, you're expending unnecessary energy. Remember, where your thoughts go, your energy flows. So right down to any movement that you make is an accumulation of cells that are firing off a result, which is, we create the spark of energy, which is the beginning, the fuse that is lit to any action that takes place in the human body as the production of what we call ATP. And that is evident as the nitro that you use for the first couple of seconds of any movement at all within the human body. And so Jade was working in a situation where she was doing hours upon hours upon hours upon hours a day of training, and her body was revolting. It was actually having a counter effect on her results. You were actually putting on weight. Yeah. And it wasn't weight. Be very clear, ladies and gentlemen and ladies. When I say weight, I'm not talking about weight. I'm talking about body fat to muscle tissue. There is a fundamental difference in understanding that. Mm-hmm. So she was putting on body fat, and she was training hours a day. I mean, unfortunately, her soccer coach did not know what he was talking about. And you tend to punish, like I said, it's very easy to punish someone who is just starting off this incredible journey in their life, and they have the chemistry that can sustain a physical punishment that other people would not sustain if they were older than them. And I'm not an ageist, and I don't, when it comes to age or timelines of your experience in this reality, that we're not limited by that. Mm-hmm. Okay? So understand this. It's critical. Critical. And so when you really wrap your mind around it, I got her down to literally 30 minutes, 40 minutes a day, 3 times a week. Like I said, most of the time we were talking because we enjoyed each other's company. It was a incredible synergy, mm-hmm. and that enhances your experience. Let's be very clear. We get back to the epigenetic model, understanding your thoughts change your reality. You can switch on and off your gene expression with your thoughts alone. And so when you train, in excess of like 20 to 30 minutes, natural default of a human being, homeostasis, will fall in place. It's a natural course of events. Wow, what does that mean, Sifu? Well, once you start training over 20, 30 minutes, your body will start producing high levels of cortisol to counteract the fundamental beating that you're giving it with the level of stress, okay? And that's just a chemical response. So when you see a lot of athletes that are quite muscular, their fluidity or their tuning is on a whole nother level. And I would have to say I've seen some incredible specimens in relation to the physical aspect that have never taken a drop or a drug of any kind and are just absolute animals. They're beasts when it comes to their physical bodies, their performance levels, all that kind of stuff. But again, I would reflect on the fact that their consciousness is in a whole different place than the other 99% of people that are operating in that place. And so they're able to obtain things that most people would say are physically impossible. That's why they are the best. They are the 1 to 2% of the population, which that 1-2% could be 98, 99%. If we choose to help people find their way to level up on their consciousness, that's why we're here. Wave 126 experience, visual, audible experience, evoking a kinesthetic response, giving you the go time that you are the field, you are in a 5-dimensional reality to affect change, manifestation, healing, magic right here, right now. That is your truth. That is your reality. And so that's where the athlete.
Yeah. And I think that's important too, like just that the consciousness, because I mean you look at something like basketball for a sport, and most people think, oh, you have to be at least 6 feet to play basketball. But there's been so many like super successful 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", who have outplayed or even had a career longer than you know taller players, and didn't let that kind of limitation, or like they can dunk, and you're like, like I'm looking at you physically going, I can't see it, but it's like that's never limited them at all to the skills of what they wanted. And that all comes back to their consciousness of what they believed, regardless of their kind of physicality.
Yeah, everything is what you believe. Everything. Your truth is the only truth that you need to be concerned with. And so this whole idea of training for hours is a fallacy. It's a misdirection. And I've taken people that are the best of the best in their field. I've trimmed their exercise down to practically nothing, starting first and foremost with their spiritual consciousness, and everything else falls into place. But let me speak moreover on the fact that when you dial in the physical body with a few simple movements, I don't really care what it is. All this, super extraordinary ways to stretch your fascia and do this and blah, blah, that, and da-da-da-da-da-da. All that can be instantly shifted with your consciousness. Your limitation of range, your performance level, your abilities are all determined by your consciousness, and it's only limited by your truth. And so you only know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. And so to override any of the physical stuff that people speak on, I'm an expert at this, I'm a correction spinal expert, blah, 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 whatever. I do this, I do that, I do nutrition. All I speak on is mirror neurons there, ladies and gentlemen and ladies. When you understand the synergy between that and the heart and the brain, all this other stuff is bobblecock.
It's kind of like if you were to like water a plant because you want the leaf to grow. Like you don't just sit there and like every day water the leaf.
No.
Like you water the roots, and then the root goes up the tree trunk, and then the tree trunk goes out the limbs, and then the leaves, that's where they get it from. And this is kind of like the same kind of concept. You're not addressing it from the leaf, or you're not like sitting there and pouring water on the leaf to hope it gets it. It gets everything from the roots. Like that's where you start. When you start addressing that, and that is absolutely cohesive, everything else just blossoms. It has this effect, and going from your spiritual body to your mental, emotional body to your physical body is the same thing. You start at the roots, you start at the spiritual. Everything else just falls into place.
It falls into place. It does. So, over the years, I've witnessed some very innovative and creative new systems within health and fitness, within spirituality. You name it, I've seen it. And it all comes back to the same ancient stuff. We've done it all before. If you're not following Taoism for the last 10,000 years, follow Hinduism, follow Judaism, follow Catholicism, follow Buddhism, Christianity. They all have their own systems, and they have their own methodologies. And just because they're not something that you would witness more over something within Taoism, because people are gravitated to Taoism because of our affinity with the universe per se over specifically one major source, even though the Tao is everything is the Tao. Our ability to harness those energies and craft them and concentrate them through the training is second to none. And harnessing that the energy force, the qi, the jing within your physical body is our bag. That's our mastery. That's what we do.
Well, I was like getting back to your story yesterday. You mentioned with like the 80-year-old man who did the whip with his wrist.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
I mean, part of me wishes he would have been like, any volunteers, you know, because like you'd probably have the strongest guy, muscular, whoever, try to come up, and like couldn't even come close to replicating the internal strength and power. It's not always about the aesthetics, and just because you
Well, it's never about the aesthetics. It's an illusion.
Exactly. Just because you look maybe aesthetically strong doesn't qualify as strength, or you look aesthetically healthy doesn't qualify as health either. I mean, we could go down.
I mean, I'll attest to that. In the physical realm, when I played in that as a bodybuilder powerlifter, I was putting up numbers that were almost record breaking, and that's not me playing my own flute, my violin, my trumpet, whatever you want to call it. And that was from a very incredible understanding of how to harness the energy. And if I just came from it as a power lifter or a bodybuilder, I would never have attained the feats that I performed when I was obsessed with that stuff. That has everything to do with my inner connection, my higher consciousness, and then my realization of my eternal immortal self. That brought me to an ability that was beyond anything else that someone else could realize. And, I came across a lot of incredible athletes over time that were coming to me for spiritual stuff, and we got their whole internal alchemy going. But on the side of physicality, what was most surprising to me is these so powerful, successful athletes, yet they were so, and I'm going to say weak. Bodybuilders, powerlifters, marathon runners, triathletes, you name it, tennis players, basketball players, whatever. And I was just like, it doesn't, well, of course it does. I understand it from an energetic level. Yet you have someone who's a power lifter who's got all this muscle mass, and they can barely pull a 500 pound deadlift, and they've been training for 20, 30 years. It's like there's a certain point where you have to ask yourself, because this is a container. So this container houses your spirit. Always remember that. And so you need to be mindful of what you're doing to this container to maximize your experience. Because when it speaks to you, you must listen. Because when they were like beating on themselves for 20, 30 years, and they're still sort of peeking out, they're gorillas. They're huge. They're 300-pound, 23-inch arms, muscles upon muscles upon muscles. Yet the brute strength was very limited compared to their size, which is not a great indicator when it comes to this type of stuff. You want to have a comparison. A lot of bodybuilders are very weak, and they look for the aesthetic. That, to me, makes no sense. You need to attune yourself to both. And so when you're starting to get messages that your body is saying, begging for mercy, you cannot take any more of this type of stress, and it's being reflected in your performance level is going down, you need to go, I need to probably rethink what I'm doing now. And so, you fix this, and everything else just...
Yeah. And we love a YouTuber. He does pranks where he pretends to be.
Yeah.
He looks just like a normal guy. Doesn't have a lot of muscles. He just looks average.
Yeah.
But he goes into the gym and he'll pretend to like be a cleaner or like a trainer.
Right.
And they'll have these guys, big jacked guys, and and he'll just walk up to their weights and be like, oh, can you put 2 more on? And he'll lift it in front of them. And I love watching it because it's like that consciousness where you watch someone go, wait, what? You know, I already have this judgment of what I think you can do. And he kind of like blows their minds. And it's an amazing thing, but it just gets back to consciousness, and everything starts from here.
Right. And so when we say starts from here, and people go, Sifu, you said that the commander-in-chief is the heart. Well, that's what we mean. Understand that. Like, if you want to stay in your personality, the brain is compartmentalized. It's trapping you there for a reason. Mm-hmm. Your true instinct, your true knowing, your knowledge comes from here. This is where the information lies, always. Always. So, you use the chemistry. You make it simple. And you create a response that, and I'll attest to this decades later. 4 minutes, that's it. You're done. You can get anything you want. I've helped people achieve taking 20, 40, 60 minutes off their best time for a marathon.
Yeah, Ironmans.
Whatever. By not even doing one. Yeah. Which is like, well, that doesn't make sense. You've got to repeat it. It's an autonomous thing. You have to imprint it within the nervous system. As you start to understand more and more and more, everything is instantaneous. This idea that that you will be reflected on your perception, your truth, your reality. It is determined by what you believe. So if you have a limited mindset, then you may want to stay within the understanding that you have to do certain things to build yourself up to a level of performance. When you have a knowing, that is null and void.
Yeah. It just kind of makes me think of like arm wrestling. Mm-hmm. Like most of the time within that world or community, like the strongest or the winners or, the champions or the number one mm-hmm. are like these little, I probably have bigger arms than them. You know what I mean? And it doesn't, that kind of idea that we create in our heads that to be the best, I have to be the biggest, or I have to be the strongest, or I have to look a certain way. It just all gets thrown out the window.
Oh yeah.
When it comes down to like what you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that energy can come in any form. Mm-hmm. And so some of the best lifts that I've ever performed that are in the hundreds, I mean, large numbers, very large numbers. It came from in here.
Yeah.
And that's what turned into the reality. Now, performance-wise, let's talk about that physical body. What are we attempting to acquire when you master that? When you are able to work that physical body with a knowing, your consciousness. Now you're in a whole different playing field, because you want to harness the alchemical response to maximize. So if you're looking to raise your strength or your testosterone, your muscle density, which would be optimal for most people. I'm not asking you to look like a barbarian, but you need some level of muscle to basically operate your physical body into the hundreds, and moreover, understanding gene expression today, you have certain epigenetic doctors that are making not claims, they are validating with peer-reviewed science that through the foods that you eat, the way that you eat, when that you eat, you are creating enzymes that open up pathways that are activating a certain type of response, longevity genes that are indicating for complete repair and recovery, reversal of aging. This is not an idea. This is not anecdotal. This is now peer-reviewed science. Now, you can take it or leave it at that point, but I can tell you right now, I've known this for many, many decades, and moreover, when you study Taoism, this idea of longevity, of immortality, is very real, and we speak on it, and we focus our attention on nurturing this physical body as long as we can within this reincarnation to level up in our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's for.
Yeah. And the physical is no different. So the less is more perspective definitely comes with that ability to create longevity, have longevity, live the healthiest, fullest life where, you're still active at 100, you're still, moving.
Your performance levels should not change.
No.
Ever. To the last breath that you take on planet Earth in this physical form, you should be able to maximize your experience in this vehicle and have this vehicle being a representation of that. Right?
Yeah.
And so the chemistry takes place. You use the simplicity of you want to maximize your hormones because your hormones are the chemistry that will give you the most bang for your buck. Now, when you then take in certain types of amino acid profiles, they activate specific gene expression that will accelerate recovery. So, the idea of the 8 essential amino acids that are not from, the human body cannot produce, you extract them from plants, generally speaking. I mean, most people are speaking on this at this point, that the longest, healthiest diet is a plant-based diet. And that's not including, fake meats and all the other rubbish that they produce these days. I'm talking about whole foods. And, supplementing is not bad if you know where the source of the supplementations are. It depends on what it is. In 40 years that I've been present in this space and understanding the supplementation space, nothing has changed. The good old-fashioned 20-plus amino acids are still the construct and the foundation and building block for all things that we know of in relation to supplementation. That has not evolved any further. Ladies and gentlemen and ladies, understanding this will help you realize you don't need to go and spend all this money on absurd supplements. You just keep to the basics. And so, what would be most effective is making sure you get amino acids that are fermented, so they're plant-based. You're not getting, just a news flash for anybody who takes supplements, amino acids of any kind. If it does not state that it is fermented, which this fermentation process came out of Japan back in the early 2000s, fantastic, a beer company by the name of Kirin. No plug, no sponsorship. I want to appreciate Japanese innovation, and they ferment everything. I mean, there are many cultures that ferment things, but the Japanese, they've got it down. And so that fermentation process, they brought it into the supplement area. So their fermentation of beer, fantastic. Then they applied it to supplements. And so you can have a completely 100% plant-based supplement, as you should. But anything you get off the shelves anywhere, unless it says it's fermented, comes from some animal body part. Like leucine is from duck feathers. If you knew it was from duck feathers, you think you're going to be lining up, scooping branched chain amino acids and dropping them down your throat? I do not think so. Like, seafood, I'm eating duck feathers? Yeah. And so you optimize the body's performance with a very short burst of exercise. I've been doing intense heavy training for many, many, many decades. It became extremely sexy and popular after a very famous athlete stroke bodybuilder brought it to the forefront, even though it had been around for a long time. A bodybuilder many decades before him created this neurological overload, this training process that you've come to become more familiar with in many aspects of health and fitness, and they call it high intensity training. Woo! And, they'll repackage it and shape it and put it in all different types of forms. You load the nervous system. Again, back to the neurology, ladies and gentlemen and ladies, when you prime that neurology, when you overload that neurology, just that right amount, you will see profound changes in your physical body, profound changes in your mental state, profound changes in your emotional state, profound changes in your consciousness. That little amount. So you take a very heavy load, again, I want people to remember, this is a suggestion. Go to your local doctor or whatever. I mean, honestly, it irritates me even saying this, but just to make you feel better. Yeah, the disclaimer of disclaimers. Don't take this as gospel. You go and work out for yourself. Ask your doctor, whatever. I mean, another psyop of some kind that people are creating another level of fear. I'm not going to go there. So use a high intensity workout. Go and research it. Go look for something that works for you. The most effective way is the shortest period of time. I wouldn't do more than 4 minutes. Do it 3 times a week. And whatever you're trying to achieve, it doesn't matter what it is. The neurology is the same. I've had people that have studied neuroscience and they're big brains on brads. They've got PhDs and they're a kinesthetic grandmaster, blah, blah, blah. They spent 24 years in college. And they go, I've got this really complex problem of this postural issue, and their spine is, inverted, and there's all this curvature and blah blah blah, and the lumbar is being impinged, the nerves are being pinched, the circulation is being limited, blah 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 blah. And I go, really? I take the person, I tell them to lie on the ground, I get them to roll over 3 times, they get up, and whatever the problem is gone. And they're like, how did you do that? Well, everything has to do with consciousness. All this other stuff is kind of redundant in of itself. You have the power. You are the power. You have everything and anything that you need within yourself. You need help from nobody, nothing external. You have it within you. All I did was reset their nervous system, blammo, in 3 seconds, and they were back to the races. That full range of motion, no pain, the whole shabam. And you can address it in different ways, but again, that's a consciousness shift of knowing. They were able to experience that. They validated that as true. Now they take it with their own belief system, and they go, this is real. Oh my goodness, level up. But that's what happened. That's how fast you can reset your nervous system. Just in case someone tells you some poppycock of how long it takes to get to this point, or that point, and this point, you can level up very, very quickly. Always remember the power you have within you. You have it all. So the power comes from your consciousness, not from anything else. The nervous system is the validator to your truth. The neurology is the sounding fork, the inner workings that determine and validate what is true to you, what is not true to you. It speaks to you.
Everything is instantaneous.
Everything. There is no exception. So you get the exercise, 4 minutes, go look up some type of training. This HIIT training, they've defined it as, it's a heavy load on the nervous system, blammo. And then you take that, and with that, if you really nurture the yin and yang energies, right? This is part of longevity that's coming out on our app. At a certain point, we will release it. There's other pillars to this incredible, miraculous awareness of consciousness. But within longevity, it's quite simple. So you've done this intense workout. You've activated, insane amounts of testosterone due to the load. your body's now starting to regulate itself with cortisol. This is the perfect time. Your insulin sensitivity is heightened. This is the only time that I would suggest taking in anything that is supplement related that would be benefit to your performance. So you would take in choose your amino acid blend, which is the three basic branch chains, which are for recovery, and that would switch on what we call the mTOR pathway, creating those enzymes, which is directly for longevity and recovery. And understand this. This is a suggestion. Go and find your professional, and they'll tell you what to do. But I know. So this turns on the mTOR gene. That pathway gives you the recovery. And you don't want to turn this on all the time. Be very clear. The sirtuin genes are the ones that, there's 7 of them that have been validated recently in the last decade or so. And those genes are the ones that dictate and control your very, inner workings, all your hormones, chemistry, you name it, it's all being controlled by these 7 sirtuin genes. So these are pathways, enzyme pathways that you would utilize. You use the branch chain for the mTOR pathway, quick recovery, and so this would switch on your mTOR pathway, which is only to be switched on for recovery. If you leave it on all the time, it can be detrimental because it switches off the other longevity genes. And so this is the chemistry. You get the intense workout for a couple minutes. It activates these gene expressions through your amino acid supplementation. You have a high spike of insulin, which gives you the ability to absorb more nutrients into the cell itself after recovery. You then wait, and this is another gene expression that's really powerful, is you wait probably 30 minutes to an hour, and then you go in for the big boy. You do your sauna. Well, actually, you could do it earlier, but I would say do the sauna 30 to 60 minutes after you exercise, and that just turns on your growth hormone like 4,000%, dude. Just like blammo. You want a fun factory of juice and gene expression. You're getting it right now. So that jacks up your growth hormone levels. You get the heat up over 200, maybe 215. Again, this is not a recommendation. Go to your professional doctor, trainer, whatever. Get them to tell you what to do. That activates the growth hormone, and then you can also end that with the cold shock protein, because that's heat shock protein that creates all these incredible inflammatory effects that take place within your liver, activating certain enzymes that give you incredible recovery through the heat exposure, yang exposure, and then you do the yin exposure, being the cold shock protein, which has another even more powerful inflammatory effect. And you've got all these hormones that are taking place. This is an optimal space of time. You're going to spend more time hanging out in the sauna and in the cold plunge than you are in the gym. Now, would I recommend this all the time? No, because everything has a level of stress and it's evoking a response within the gene expression in your body. But this goes way beyond the whole just what I eat, how I eat. Less is always more, no matter what, guys. We are big believers in resting, and that resting will evoke an alchemical response in your body that will outweigh anything that you could ever imagine. And food is sustenance, food is for pleasure. You just need to time it. And when you work with it correctly, you can create a whole myriad of profound chemical responses that you have inside you all the time. So you got that, you do the workout, you get the maximum response testosterone. And remember this, if you do long bouts of evoking heat shock protein within saunas, it will have a fundamental reduction in your testosterone production. It elevates your growth hormone, but it will reduce your testosterone. So, you don't have to do it every single day. Like we're saying, do it 3 times a week. For the exercise, you can do the sauna and the cold plunge 3 times a week and get the maximum results. This is where you overkill. Everyone goes, oh my goodness, 4,000%. Oh, testosterone, growth hormone. Oh my goodness, inflammatory. The cold shock protein, heat shock protein. All these incredible things. I'm clearing out my liver. I'm detoxing. I'm doing all these things. I'm expressing these genes. I'm elevating my longevity. That's all you need. That's the secret sauce. And it's the same thing that goes with your consciousness. You level up. You open up yourself to operating that 5D reality. So that's the basic fundamentals of how you create performance. That high intensity training can be optimal. It doesn't really matter. I guarantee you just pick something you like and it's heavy, you move it. And no matter what you're doing, no matter what exercise it is, no matter what it is, you're going to get better at it. No matter what sport you're into, you're going to get fundamentally better at it because you're activating these enzymes, you're activating these gene expressions that level up way beyond the simplicity of, I've got to nurture this energy, I've got to nurture that energy. No. This all takes place, and this is stuff that has been known for thousands of years within Taoism, but now, over the last 20 or 30 years, people are starting to understand the epigenome and what it does and how powerful these gene expressions are. That's why people do a lot of blood tests, biomarkers, all that kind of good stuff. And they're getting right to the point. They're not wasting their time with all this ridiculous overtraining.
It's always like less is more. Like you wouldn't go into your car and your car takes 6 quarts of oil and you're like, oh, well, more is better. I'll just put 12 in. It's like, no, it's designed for a reason. There's a certain capacity where it's the most optimal for driving. And it's like same thing with your body. You wouldn't go in and just go, oh, well, more is so much better. Let me just, eat 20 pounds of food because that's better. It's like, well, no, we're designed,
right.
We're mechanically designed. This neurology and physicality is all designed specifically. So when you optimize it, that's where you feel
hot
it.
diggity, you're off in the right blammo.
Mm-hmm.
And so in summary, understanding that the basic concept, basically your events in process from 1 to 5, the exercise is intense and minimal, activating testosterone, growth hormone, other things. And then you go into hot and cold exposure, elevating other chemical responses. After the workout, you're getting gene expression from, supplementing your amino acids or supplements per se. And, the other response is the insulin spike, which gives you the ability to absorb the nutrients so much deeper into the cell itself. And so you have all these incredible rippling effects that take place. If done in order, you are going to see fundamental, powerful changes in your physiology, in your mental, emotional state, in your spiritual state. And then you level up working on the alchemy, right? The alchemy, the energetic body, the connection that you have with the energy and the universe. That's where you level up. That's where we are masters at this game, right? And so I will, in summation, explain that the affinity that we have within internal alchemy practices such as Bagua, Tai Chi, Qigong, these are Nigong, these are internal alchemy practices. You are energizing the cells within this physical body and leveling them up, finally tuning them to the universe using these systems. And the movement becomes another expression of energy and how you move. So when we're moving through all these movements, Tai Chi, Bagua, Qigong, Nigong, all this stuff, elevates the mechanoreceptive response. So neurology-wise, you have these receptors in your joints, and the more you move in a circular manner, and then you're moving energy through your physical body, through the cell, you elevate, you go upwards. It drops down your threat level, fight or flight mechanism, basically brings your threat level down to zero, which in turn affects your emotional state, which in turn puts you into a state, a brain wave that is completely chill, man. In an alpha, theta, I operate in that theta state now. Technically, that is you're asleep. Theta, delta, you're asleep. Operate in theta, alpha, gamma all day, every day. And, you go down to delta and epsilon, and people are able to operate in that, even though on paper they should be dead asleep. And that's nourishing the body, and it's only limited by your truth. What you believe is your potential. That's it. So when you do that stuff, you're leveling up to a whole nother. So in summary, exercise, less is more, more is less. That's what it comes down to, and those mechanisms. I think we're pretty thorough about those mechanisms, right? Understanding how they're created, how they're shaped, and what's necessary to make them happen. And I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg, guys. You ain't seen nothing. But I'm just letting out a little secret sauce. But always remember, again, I don't know why I'm saying this, go to your medical professional and get their advice. I'm just a humble servant of Sifu, I'm dropping knowledge bombs on this stuff because this is what I know inside and out. You have to now validate it through your own professional, whatever you want to do with it. Do you have anything else you think in summary that looking at what we talked about? We talked about a lot of stuff today, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean.
But, everything and everything is our everything. And we love it all.
We do. And it does. It always gets back to less is more. And really, when you optimize the physical body and you work with the chemistry of it, you don't have to force it to do something. It just does it. And it does it for you. I mean, why would you? It's kind of like gosh, I'm really into cars for some reason, but it's like putting square tires on a car.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to force it when it's like, you put a round tire on, you push it, it moves. It's like, this is all these concepts are in line with that. When you know how to work the chemistry the right way, oh my goodness, I mean, limitless.
Right.
We say limitless for your consciousness, your
abundant,
physical,
timeless, endless, limitless, infinite.
And your physical body is no different.
No different. I mean, it's alluding to, we have epigenetic scientists right now that are validating that the life expectancy of individuals are going to be in excess of 100 years of age. And that's just with the information they're uncovering and they're sharing with peer-reviewed science, validating the truth to what it is that they've discovered through their own research. I mean, and they alluded to, immortality, and it's like, okay, wow. But, we speak on it before because, there's absolutely documentation for thousands of years within our Taoist lineage where, Taoist priests have lived 100, 200 years old. I mean, it's only just the beginning, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen. So remember that everything is interconnected. We are as one. You do not separate. You do not create title. It's time to level up. Any thoughts or feelings or in closing?
I this is, again, we talk about longevity and just optimizing this lifespan, optimizing this vessel, and for us, that's what it's all about. And so anything that we can do that does that or opens your consciousness to do that is incredible information.
Right, right. And, you know, I mean, this is where we start. This is not where we end. This is just the beginning. And as we mentioned just yesterday, we're going to start rolling out some specific practices that will work really well. And you guys can start implementing it.
Mm-hmm. And go more in depth on certain topics.
But not before we level up. We need to level up. We need to, in closing, encapsulate what is the very essence of what just makes me feel good. He just makes me feel good. And you need to gravitate to whatever makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And never forget that. And in closing, I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Quinn. See you on the next one, guys.